You're listening to the Paranormal UK Radio Network, and now it's time for the Paranormal Peep Show.
Hi, welcome to the Paranormal Peep Show with myself, Neil Ward, and well, Andy isn't here tonight, but no worries, we have a guest anyway, and he joins us all the way from, I'd like to say, he joins us all the way from Mexico, but it's actually Hemel Hempstead, so that was a curveball thrown to me. Welcome, Gary Robinson. How are you, Gary?
How you doing, Neil? Pretty good, mate. Thanks for having me on. Good to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Now, you know Ben, one of our regular guests, Ben Emlyn Jones, and
you indeed
started to watch Ben's YouTube output, and then you started to watch some of our stuff as well, didn't you? That's how you came to find us looking out.
That's right. Yeah, I mean, I pretty much found you guys through the comments on Ben's videos, and and then became a fan of the whole Paranormal UK radio network on YouTube. But for me, the standout show was always Paranormal Peep Show, because well, I mean, there's some great topics, and I like to be able to leave comments and discussions and whatnot, and I've always got a lot to add. And same with Ben's channel as well. It's kind of a good forum for woo subjects.
Yeah, absolutely. It does make it interesting. I mean, Ben's videos are interesting, but I find the comments just as interesting, actually.
When you're pretty entertaining.
Yeah. Some of the comments are better than the material.
Lots of love and hate at the same time.
Yeah, interesting concoction. Sometimes it's dangerous territory.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're now residing, for the moment, at least, in Hemel Hempstead, in Hertfordshire. And I know that stomping ground because I grew up in Buckinghamshire, and I lived for a while in Chesham. And my brother, as I think I mentioned to you before we start recording, spent a good 25 years in Hemel Hempstead, and in the very area that you are. Ironically,
in Grove Hill.
In Grove Hill on Hemel Hempstead.
Which is
where you grew up.
The toughest place in Hemel Hempstead.
Yeah, so
that's the
good education, street cred and stuff.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, the worst schools, toughest chaps.
Yeah, it makes Grange Hill look like Mary Poppins or something, maybe.
Yeah. I remember about 15 years ago, I came home into Grove Hill one night, and at the main bus stop, someone had left a huge, I think it was like a Cortina or something. It was on fire, and they put a sign in front of it, and on the front they'd spray painted, "Welcome to Grove Hill." It was like a scene from the TV show Shameless. It was great. That just sums up Grove Hill.
Wow. And I've caught many buses through that area up to Grove Hill when I've been returning from Luton Airport, and I've had to catch all the buses all the way from the bottom of the town and catch all the buses all the way to the very top, because it's obviously up the top of Hemel.
Yeah, that's right.
And then to go and hopefully retrieve my car that's still there.
Yeah. So, you never know around here. You never know.
You never know. So you're a musician as well, though, which is another thing I've got in common with you, playing music.
Yeah, exactly. Well, in another lifetime, I was actually a web developer, and I had a good career as a web developer. But since back in the days when nobody knew what the internet was, I had a job with AKQA, which was like one of the leading agencies back then. But since I moved to Mexico about 15 years ago, I had to take music production, which was essentially something I did in the evenings, and I had to turn it into a job. And I'd already had some music on TV through a number of production libraries. I think my first TV show was EastEnders. I had a drum and bass track in a club scene. And so I pretty much took my catalog to a number of production libraries and licensing companies, and got set up for business. So 15 years later, I've got, I think, roughly 200 credits on like Hollywood film and TV, and countless more placements on, like European regional news, and sort of lifestyle programs, lots of reality shows. I'm trying to think what the most recent films I've done. And when I say films, I've not done the soundtrack. I'm the guy that gets picked up if they need like a specific song for a scene that isn't covered by the composer. So like in the movie Venom 2, the Marvel movie, there's like a club scene. So
I was actually watching that last night, funny enough.
Oh, okay.
How
okay.
ironic, yeah.
That's another strange coincidence, isn't it?
Yeah.
So you were telling me earlier that you met on someone called Gary from Mexico, but it wasn't me.
Yeah. I was listening to another podcast, David Young,
That's right.
who does our one of the other shows on the Paranormal UK radio network. He was talking to another Gary who's into crop circles, and he used to live in Mexico, which I thought was a bit odd as I was going to interview you with your Mexican connections.
It's a strange connection, yeah. What was I saying? Movies. I'll just keep a few so that people know. Yeah, Venom 2. I recently did Playmobil, the movie. That was Daniel Radcliffe. And I think I had 2 tracks in that. I've done Time Freak, which was a Netflix film with one of the girls from Game of Thrones. One of the biggest films I did was Tracers, which was made by the people who did Power Rangers. And it had Taylor Lautner. And I did the opening scene. And they wanted dubstep because dubstep was big at the time. And what I gave them was a drum and bass record at half speed. And they used it to score the entire intro of the movie, and that was great. And I've done a lot of TV shows over the years as well. Plenty of stuff on the CW. I think I was mentioning to you about the CW, things like Beauty and the Beast, the Fosters, Batwoman, stuff like that. Kardashians, Selling Sunset, all the big reality shows. Once you get a good agent, you've
so is that, so you used to supply your stuff to like production libraries, and people would then trawl through the internet on the production library website that they're registered, and they say, oh, I like that track, I'll download it, and then you'd get a royalty or something. But now you've got an agent that actually puts your work out to...
Yeah, well, actually, I've got various agents who, some of them run their own libraries and work with other production companies. So it's quite a complicated setup because some of the companies work in very different ways. Some of them are literally production libraries where, like you say, they'll add like a product that you make and people will find it by trawling through. And then there are other companies where they represent you more as if it's a record label, and they'll say, wow, we've got this artist who's hot, and you think this track would be great for your new show, blah blah blah, and they'll promote you as if they were really promoting a record that they were releasing. So there's quite a few different avenues. But over the last 2 years, Neil, I have to say that the music licensing industry has been affected by none other than the woke virus. So that's something can or can't get into, because I know Andy loves his anti-woke takedowns.
Oh yeah, cool. So you got to do politically correct music now.
Yeah, well, there's a few things that have been happening. One is that you've probably seen that Hollywood films and TV shows and streaming platforms just aren't making the money that they used to be, because the woke content that preaches to the audience or is just inappropriate for younger audiences doesn't make the money. So I've noticed that companies that give me a list of shows and films that I'm pitched towards, those pitch lists of, they're not even a quarter of what they used to be, because there's not the same amount of shows and films in production. And that is simply because the money isn't there. But what's scary, and I've not got my head around this, is a couple of companies whom I wasn't inner circle composer, as in, one of the main composers. They began to prioritize, shall we say, people of color who were working with them. So if you're of my complexion, for no reason whatsoever, you now go to the bottom of the pile. So it's like a reverse racism situation amongst a team of people who were already friends. And it's another example of the people at the top making these bizarre decisions that they think are right and virtuous, while everyone else suffers at the bottom.
Mm.
So I don't know what Andy would have to say about that.
Yeah, be interesting. I must admit, I was watching, you talk about streaming services, and we've been watching the third series of The Witcher, and I'm not really a fan of The Witcher, but my wife likes watching it, and so I watch it with a Witcher. That's a bit of a mouthful. So on this new episode, I think it was the first or second episode of the third series. So I don't really know what's going on, but I'm just watching it, and okay, I'm trying to keep up. But she told me not to talk through it. She says, don't say anything. You just talk your way through it, and it really annoys me. Just keep your trap shut and watch the film. I went, all right. And I'm sitting there with my mouth zipped, and she had to open her mouth as well because she was totally gobsmacked. Is that we saw this lady who was a blacksmith. Nothing wrong with that. She was making swords for The Witcher, but she had a beard. And
that's bizarre.
Yeah. And I said, hang on. I said, that's a lady with a beard and no one's talking about it. Yeah. And she let me talk on that one. It's like, because it had to be said.
What? I've got to say that I don't. Sorry, Neil, go on, mate.
Yeah, I was going to say, I said it to Ben, and Ben was going, what? A woman with a beard? I said, yeah. I really think I've got to go back and photograph it or something to prove it, because it's just so bizarre.
You won't need to photograph it for me. I completely believe you, and I'm not even shocked by it. I don't know if you saw recent stories about Disneyland in Los Angeles, but they had a bearded guy dressed up in a little Cinderella costume, handed out candies to kids.
Oh, God.
And now Disneyland's empty.
Oh my God.
As for The Witcher, I've not watched it, but I've been keeping up with the news in regards to it because it's also been affected by woke. The CW channel that I told you about that I used to make a lot of royalties from their shows, they're heading to bankruptcy, and one of the showrunners, which is like a producer / writer in charge of a show, was brought into The Witcher after she screwed up CW. And what I read was that Henry Cavill's leaving the show because they're making him into just a bit part character and making some of the female characters the lead. And he's not interested in wokeness. And I've just seen a picture of Chris Hemsworth's brother, the guy that plays Thor, brother, who's an actor. And I've seen him in the full costume to replace Henry Cavill. And so apparently in the next season moving forward, Henry Cavill's out and Liam Hemsworth is in doing the same character, but as a side role and not the lead.
Right. Oh my God.
It's because those women, they don't need no man, apparently.
Well, that's it. Yeah. It's turning into a right carry-on. Bloody hell. Yeah. It's It kind of reminds me slightly of when going back to the 80s when they had Robin of Sherwood on TV. It wasn't woke or anything like that. It's just the fact that halfway through the series, or one of the series, between series 1 and series 2, I can't remember how many series it was now. They went from the guy who was dark-haired, and I forget what his name was. He went on to do Dallas or something later on. Michael Page, yeah.
Yeah. And
then they replaced him with Sean Connery's son.
That's right. And that
the blonde hair.
Yeah. And they did it in an interesting way, though, didn't they? It was almost like a Doctor Who thing.
Yeah, I never fully understood what was going on there, though.
I can tell you what they did. They came up with a formula where Herne the Hunter possesses the man that wears the deer antlers, the shame. Yeah. And once one hooded man has been killed, Herne the Hunter's spirit tells him to choose another person. So the reason they did that was they figured that every time a lead actor quit the show, they could just pick another one.
Very Doctor Who-like then, really, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, well. It worked with Doctor Who, so I guess everyone's kind of like taking that same concept and thinking, okay, we're actually, we can do without that expensive actor and get another one cheaper and keep the dice rolling, so to speak.
Yeah. See you later.
Yeah. So going from the music then, you obviously went from Hemel Hempstead all the way to Mexico 15 years ago, you said. So, how did you end up in Mexico?
Well, I went on holiday with some friends to Los Angeles. Actually, it's almost 20 years ago now. And one of my friends suggested we go to Las Vegas. And one night in one of the casinos, I ended up meeting my future wife. It turned out that she was from a small town in Mexico. And we ended up, jetting back and forward for a year or so. And eventually got married. Lived in the UK for a while, but she didn't cope well with the climate of Hemel Hempstead and London. So we ended up moving back to the town where she comes from, which is it's a town on the border of Texas called Acuna. And it's kind of a strange town because it looks like the old Wild West. And Tarantino used to go there to film scenes from some of his movies, like Dusk Till Dawn.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. And I don't know if you've ever seen the film El Mariachi, Robert Rodriguez. It's a famous Mexican film. It's quite a cult movie. And there were 3 sequels as well. And with Antonio Banderas, Danny Trejo. And they just turned up and filmed them in the main high street in Acuna, which is bizarre. But it looks great. I mean, you could film music videos there or anything, just before you need to down the street and film it. But another interesting thing about Acuna is that out in the desert, about 10 minutes out of the city, there's a huge radio station with a gigantic mast. And in the 1960s, it was the hideout of a DJ called Wolfman Jack. So if you've ever seen the film American Graffiti, George Lucas's first film.
Harrison Ford was in it, wasn't he? Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, he was in that. He took that job to keep his acting insurance so he could pay for his first child's birth. But Wolfman Jack was featured in American Graffiti because his broadcasts were going out to Vietnam to lift the spirits of the troops, but no one knew where he was. And the whole time he was in Acuna, in the desert, hiding, because he had illegal radio equipment that was too powerful.
Yeah,
reached in all the way to Asia. Because he was in Mexico, even if anyone found him, they couldn't, stop him. He's in Mexico, nobody cares,
Right, interesting. Bit like Radio Caroline, kind of their version of it.
Yeah. Only if you see the size of the mast, it's like the size of a small town. It's just like Cybertron, this thing coming out of the desert. There's no wonder he managed to broadcast all the way to Asia.
Crikey.
Fun fact.
So when you moved to Mexico, how did you acclimatize to it? Did you kind of get on with it straight off, or was it a problem for you?
Well, after a week or so of throwing up and adjusting to the foreign bacteria, which is hard, we built our own place and just got to work. So I've got 4 kids, 2 of which are grown up now, and 2 daughters who are young. But my sons were young when we were out there. So you know what it's like when you have kids, you just get in the rhythm of things and you get on with, building your life. And so I found that I adjusted pretty good, although I don't speak Spanish. But on the border, a lot of people speak English. But it is a completely different life, and it is the Wild West, and it's quite tough. People often say, "Oh, you live in Mexico. You must be great living in Mexico City." And I say, "No, I don't live there. I live in one of the 100 million other places, not Mexico City," which is a very different lifestyle.
So you're not picked up any Spanish, like the basics or anything?
Yeah, a little bit, but not too much. My kids speak Spanish, but I find that if you spend all your days indoors hiding from the sun, sitting on a computer, you don't learn much Spanish.
Yeah, that's actually interesting, actually, because when I lived in the Orkney Islands, and you meet people that go out and spend all their days fishing in the Orkney Islands. And for those that don't know where the Orkney Islands is, it's the group of islands off the north coast of Scotland. And it's when you're looking at your AA atlas, you have to find it on those little square boxes at the back somewhere because they haven't got room to put it on the main map sort of thing. But yeah, the Orkney Islands are about 10 miles off the coast of northern Scotland. And then you got the Shetland Islands, another 200 plus miles further north than that. But I lived there for about 5 years. My daughter still lives there. And ironically, she's still got an English accent. She still sounds very English, and that she moved there when she was like 9.
Right. Do they have their own accent?
Well, in Orkney, yeah, even people in Scotland have trouble understanding the Orcadians. And
Wow.
The thing is, as you said, that you'll spend all your time indoors, out of the sun, on your computer. You don't therefore pick up Spanish much. But I think it's the same with the Orcadian men, because they're out fish all the time. They don't come inland much and blend with the visitors like the tourists, and they don't talk to them much. So that when you do talk to them, it is so much harder to understand them. Whereas the locals there will adapt their accents to make it easier for you to understand them, because obviously they're trying to sell you stuff, in their little gift shops and things. So they'll make it easier for you to understand them. But the Orcadian men, no, it's just because they're doing that job, and they don't. It doesn't even click with them that they got to adjust their accent. I remember once helping this English guy move house once in Orkney, and because it was a stormy day, these two Orcadian fishermen decided that they weren't going to go out in their boat that day. They'd helped this guy move as well. So it was the first time I'd met them. And we're all getting stuff down from the bedrooms, like the beds, and dismounting them and putting them onto this truck or something. And this Orcadian man said, "What about the madras?" And we're looking at each other, "Madras? What?" And we go, "Madras? What, curry?" And he goes, No, the madras for the beds. And we went, "Oh, mattress. That's what he was saying."
Right. It's like a completely different rhythm of
Yeah. It's so funny. Madras, yeah. But again, that's an example of people that just don't mix with other people. They have their own virtual language, and it's so hard to understand them.
Wow.
So you mentioned earlier about ghostly experiences, obviously because we're a paranormal peep show. I expect we better start talking paranormal stuff.
I was going to say, we better get on to the woo subjects.
The woo stuff, yeah. We've had the woke, now let's do the woo.
Yes.
So you mentioned there's some, before you moved to Mexico, you mentioned something about ghostly activities in Hemel Hempstead. And I remember talking to you online, and that's how, because you obviously connected me to Hemel Hempstead, because I happened to mention in one of our shows that my brother, who lived in Grove Hill, we were filling up some petrol because he was taking me to Luton Airport, and we passed his garage.
Yeah.
And this is, he said, in that place up there, he pointed, is some friends of his had poltergeist activity, and it got so bad, things were flying around in their house, in their flat, that they had to come outside and just sit in the car and look back up to their room at stuff flying about.
So they were sitting outside and they could still see everything through the curtains.
Yeah, apparently so. Yeah, they could see stuff moving or whatever it was, and they had to sit out there maybe for an hour until it settled down. But yeah,
it's
been so freaky. Yeah. So that's how you found out my kind of Hemel connection.
That's right. I remember that.
Hemel. Yeah.
It's a couple of years ago we were talking.
Yeah.
Wasn't it? Yeah.
Haunted Hemel. So what's your ghost stories of Hemel?
Well, I have a ghost story relating to the house that I'm in right now, which is my parents' house, which is a pretty new build. I guess it was built in the early 80s. But when I was here as a kid, I think I was off school sick one day, and I was probably only about 13, and it was completely quiet. I think it was a summer's day, and this has never left me. I could suddenly hear somebody moving around the house upstairs where I am right now, 35 years later. And I thought, Jesus, well, no one's due to be home. And so I get up the courage and I creep out the bedroom onto the landing, and I can hear somebody moving around. It's not a bird or a window or the neighbors or anything like that. The house is detached. And at this point, I don't know what they call it when your fear is up and like fight or flight, basically. Mm-hmm. And I'm checking every room very slowly. And as I'm looking around the corner, I'm thinking, I'm going to see someone, because I can still hear the movement. I'm not quite sure where it's coming from. Absolutely nothing. I checked the whole of the upstairs. I'm terrified. Nothing whatsoever. So I'm 13 years old. I called my grandfather, who was still alive. I said, listen, I reckon there's someone in the house. Please come and get me. So he has a look around the house. We couldn't find anyone, and I'm convinced that I heard someone. So that was the end of it, until last year. My brother calls me up. My brother still lives here in this house, even though he's like in his mid-30s now. And he says to me, we've been having some weird experiences at the house. He said, well, firstly, when we're in bed at night, we can hear somebody walking up the stairs, but they never get there. And it goes on and just never stops, to the point where my sister, who had been living here in between marriages, would also wake up and say, what the hell is this noise? They thought maybe someone was, I don't know, tapping their feet while laying in bed. And my parents were being driven mad by it. They said it had a strange acoustic to it as well. Like you couldn't place it, if that makes sense. Like a lot of these experiences, you can never quite put your finger on them. And so one night, they're hearing the sound again, but they doze off because they're used to it. And they're woken up by banging and crashing downstairs and someone moving about. So they all go downstairs, and my parents are terrified. They're looking behind curtains, inside cupboards. There's nobody there. They don't know what to do. They search everywhere, behind the sofa, because they think someone's got in, and they're hiding, which does happen. People break in and they hide.
Yeah.
So they have to go back to bed. A couple of weeks later, the same thing happens. Everyone's terrified. They run downstairs, and my dad's cell phone starts ringing. And so they're like, well, who the hell's ringing us at this time? They pick up my dad's cell phone, and it's the house number ringing the cell phone.
How weird.
They're standing right in front of the house phone. They answer the call. There's like a weird white noise on the phone. And they said after that night, they never heard anything again. That was it. How strange. Yeah. Very strange.
That's almost sounds like a kind of paranormal poltergeisty type of thing. The fact that it's making cell phones work, and the creeping up of the stairs. I mean, maybe it moves on to the other place in Hemel, and spooks someone else out, I mean, if ghosts can go through walls, why not?
That's if we know what ghosts are.
That's right, yeah.
I'm undecided on that subject at the moment. But I did stay in a haunted house in Mexico once, in Monterrey. Monterrey is a city that's a bit like a Mexican version of Los Angeles, but it's also in the mountains. Strangely enough, I think Predator, the jungle scenes, were filmed in the jungle just outside the city of Monterrey. But yeah, just before I was married, my wife was living in a house with two other girls in Monterrey. One of them, her parents owned the house, and they said to me, look, the place is modern, but it's haunted. We see a guy at the end of the bed at night. We all have to stay in the same room because we're terrified. And they had on the staircase, they had a huge crucifix with Christ on the crucifix, a typical Mexican sort of rendering in full color with the blood and unnecessary gore. And that was terrifying. And I actually had my first UFO experience in that house. So what actually happened was one weekend, the two housemates were away, and it was just me and my wife to be, that is, at the time. And we're in the bedroom looking out over the mountains. I think we were just watching a film on a laptop at the time because we didn't even have a TV. And you can just about see the silhouette of the mountains in Monterey. And I sat up because I saw something like that in the sky. I thought, what on earth was that? And then we saw some more, like little white dots zipping off into the sky. And the classic UFO that people talk about, where you see the little white UFO and it's zipping all over the place at right angles, and it's moving ultra fast. We're actually watching those over the mountains in Monterey. So we get closer to the window to have a look, because I want to make sure, it's not fireflies, or it's not, I don't know, lights on a tower of some kind. And we watched these things for quite some time. And I know they used to talk about that phenomena in the TV show Ancient Aliens, and they used to describe it in a certain way, because those little bits of light fire off in different directions, but they don't go out. They stay floating slowly, and then they suddenly zip off, and then in another direction. And that was, there's no doubt in my mind that was something.
Did anyone else? Did you get was there any other witnesses? Were anything reported on the local TV or not, in the local press, maybe, that other people have seen it?
Not that I know of. Maybe they see those things there a lot. I don't know.
Yeah.
But couldn't believe what I was seeing. And we both watched it together. And as they say, I know what I saw.
Yeah.
But that's not the weirdest thing I've seen in Mexico, though. I'll get to some weird things. But that same house, back to the subject of haunted houses. We were well aware of the things that had been going on. And I was kind of freaked out staying there. And we went out for a meal one night and came back. And we'd not long been settled down to sleep. And we heard some moving about. And I could see shadows under the door that were not actually coming to the door. So it wasn't actually somebody standing outside the door. So I mean, it was movement. And we thought, bloody hell. And Isabel, that's my wife, she was saying, let's just be quiet. No, maybe it will go away, because there's no one in the house, because we would have heard the alarm system being deactivated. We would have heard everyone coming in. So we can see this movement, like flutters of light and shadow. And it was only a few minutes as we're just watching it, frozen, hoping it would stop. There's someone's knocking at the door, the bedroom door.
Ooh.
And it's not until you've experienced these things that you think, bloody hell, what on earth could that be? You can even feel the door shaking as someone's knocking on it, but there's no feet at the bottom of the door, and the gap under the door was quite, it's a few inches. A bad Mexican build, So, we literally just hid under the covers and went to sleep, and that was that. I thought, I don't want to know. I really don't want to know.
Crikey.
Yeah.
Wow. It's kind of the Jesus thing on there for protection, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
But the other girls.
Yeah, go on.
Sorry.
Actually, they've seen it as well.
Yeah, they said that a guy would appear at the end of the bed, and if they all moved to the other bedroom, the guy would sometimes appear in that bedroom, just standing, staring. Wow. And so they would actually run. They said that they would actually get up screaming and run past him, and it would happen if, let's say, these girls all went out clubbing, and they brought some other friends back to stay over. Like a whole group of them would see this guy, and they would actually run past him screaming and go into the other bedroom. And then some nights would reappear.
Wow. So, did he kind of try and interact with them in any way, or was it just like a almost gormless staring spectre?
I wondered about that, but they said it was just a gormless, motionless spectre, as you say.
Right.
Standing and staring at them. But I also heard that one of them saw the guy when she was on holiday somewhere else, hundreds of miles away.
Interesting.
And he appeared in the hotel room.
Bloody hell.
So that is weird. So was it here knocking at the door? I don't know.
Yeah, that reminds me of this guy that I used to be in a psychic developing circle in the late 80s. And this guy called Brian, I think he, at the time, he's obviously retired now. You don't sort of see these people again, but I think he worked for British Gas at the time, but he was in this psychic developing circle, and we'd all had a summer break type of thing. We'd all getting back into the swing of things, like by September, starting the circle up again to try and develop our psychic abilities. And this guy, Brian, said, "Oh yeah, I've just got back from 2 weeks in Italy or somewhere like that, Mediterranean somewhere. And I've just had a really weird experience." And we said, "Well, what's that then?" He said, "Well, I had a phone call from the hotel when I got back asking if I was Brian such and such," and he'd say Brian Smith. I can't remember what his surname was.
Yeah.
And he'd say, yeah. And they said, "Well, we're just kind of checking," because apparently this Brian said that when he was in his hotel and he was like on the, so many floors, looking out over the pool sort of thing. He said he woke up in the middle of the night. He said he saw this guy in a tuxedo walk past him in the living room of the room that he's got in the living room section, because he could see him through the bedroom, I suppose, with the door open. Walk past him and then fall over the balcony. And so when he checked out of the hotel, to sort of say, he said, "Has anyone ever died in that room?" And they said, no, nothing like that. He said, "Oh, okay." And he didn't say what he had seen, but he just thought, that's a bit weird what I've seen.
That is weird.
And so when he got back to the UK, they'd rung him 5 days later or something. They said, we're just checking because we got some luggage to send back to the UK. But okay. There was a man that went into your hotel room after you who happened to have the same name, Brian Smith, and he fell to his death wearing a tuxedo from the room that you were in. And
that is bizarre.
And they were ringing up to say, we want to make sure we're sending the luggage back to the right Brian Smith. And that's how he found out the story. Yeah, it's so sadly.
How does anyone explain something like that?
Yeah.
The skeptics out there, any skeptics watching, please explain that.
Yeah.
Skeptics literally say, well, it was a coincidence. There was another guy called Brian, and of all the countries and all the hotels in the world, he booked into that one and was depressed.
Yeah. They say there's so many billions of people in the world that it's got to happen at some point somewhere. That's probably what they'd say. But even so, it's still they would say that it won't. It might explain the coincidence, but it doesn't explain the fact that he'd seen this spectre going past him. You see,
yeah,
it still suspect a bit. You see, before
it just goes to show how multifaceted the whole phenomena, if that's what you want to call it, is. Because I know that if you listen to Paul Sinclair from Truth Proof, yes, he's at the point where he believes that everything woo related is probably one phenomena manifesting itself differently. But then how does that explain things that could be related to a stone tape theory type / time slip event like that, where you're seeing either something that happened or something that's going to happen? I mean, that expands the subject even further, doesn't it? It makes it even harder to explain.
Yeah. And another woo thing that happened to this lady that I used to work with many years ago in the 80s. I used to work in a film library, and she was one of the supervisors that repaired the sort of 16mm training films for the army.
Okay, yeah.
I mentioned this lady in the last show, funny enough, because she had this espionage story to tell me.
I remember that, the Russian thing, yeah.
Yeah, the stolen Russian film. Well, I won't say her name, but during the other conversation, she told me the Russian story. She said that she had seen a ghost. And I said, all right, tell me more. And she said she was a sort of teenager at the time, and she was like nearing 70. This is just before the pandemic, she told me this story. And so she said that she was like perhaps 18 or something at the time, and she'd gone away to Devon, I think, on holiday with her family. And she'd stayed in this particular bedroom, and it had a very small window in this holiday cottage, and she could just about see the sea through the window. And she said she went to sleep, but then she woke up in the middle of the night. She saw this old woman sitting in the chair right by the bed, but her head was sort of, I think it was slumped over like that, she said.
Okay.
She looked at it and thought, oh my God, it's a ghost, and freaked out. And like you said, put your head under the covers and just go to sleep. And so she
forget about it.
And then she woke up some point later, maybe 2 or 3 hours later, and she sort of opened, pulled back the covers, and she looked at the window. She could see the morning light starting to come through the window on the sea. Because it's getting morning. Then she remembered, hang on, I saw a ghost last night. And she looked to her left, and it was still there in the chair.
Oh my God!
But this time, instead of the head being down, she said the head was looking up like that, and she said it looked remarkably like her grandmother. And she said, as she watched it, it started to disappear in front of her.
So was that some kind of? Was her grandmother still alive, or was she already passed?
I think her grandmother was still alive. And so I didn't say this at the time to her. I just said, oh, that's really interesting and scary at the same time. Then I started to think about it and analyze it. And I was thinking, okay, if we go out of our bodies as astral traveling or something when we're asleep, maybe, and there's only a theory that I put together, hypothetical idea, that maybe her grandmother was wondering how they were all getting on holiday and was kind of concerned of missing them, waiting for that postcard to arrive saying we're having a nice time, and maybe subconsciously the grandmother traveled out of her body, sat in the chair opposite where this lady was dozing as a young teenager, and she then, at the point when the day is coming, that people starting to wake up, this spectre started to disappear and presumably go back to its body. I.e. the grandmother's back in London.
She subconsciously knew what was happening. Everyone was waking up, and so she.
Yeah, and
went
maybe
back
she
to
had a
herself. Yeah.
dream. Maybe she had a dream of her family or something, but didn't quite remember all the details. And
Yeah,
that's why,
it's just a thing, because sometimes you do have dreams where I don't know if you get this, but I get dreams where I'm stuck in a house somewhere and I'm exploring the house, but I'm walking back into rooms and everything in there is the same. And I've had dreams like that after taking magic mushroom microdosing, and I'm actually stuck in a place that I can see and walk around, and it doesn't change like when you're in a dream. So that
is an interesting thing to try when you're dreaming. If you can consciously try and wake up within a dream, or even if you do it with something additional, try it. Try and find the sun in your dream. Look out the window and see if you can see it, because you never see it.
That's true.
When you're in a dream, you just accept the light where it is. You don't even question it. But I've been trying so hard to try and find the sun in my dream. And I did come awake a little bit within a dream, lucid dream a little bit. And I remember saying, I want to see the sun. I want to see the sun. And I saw this kind of crack in the roof, like an old barn or something, and where maybe some of the beams were missing. And I could see like a tiny, tiny little star. And that was all I felt in the dream. That was all I was allowed to see, was a tiny star through the crack of the roof. I couldn't see the sun. And the reason I try and find out, is there a sun in the dream, is because according to people that come through from the other side, people that are dead, they say that the light comes from all around them. There doesn't seem to be a sun that illuminates wherever they are.
I didn't know that.
The light is all around them, and they've never seen the sun since they've died. And so I'm wondering, like, when we're in the dream state, are we in the spirit world? And this is why I'm trying to look for the sun, just to kind of confirm it.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I've got friends who are psychics who say similar things, and they think that when people take psychedelics, that they're going to the same realm that they tune into naturally. So it could just be, it makes sense if we were going to one place in dreams and under, psychedelic experiences, etc.
Yeah. It's just,
maybe I'm putting too much logic into something that doesn't work in the way our minds do in the physical realm.
Well, yeah. When you go into the dream world, nothing makes sense, and so it makes perfect sense on the other side, as it were. Now, you mentioned the microdoses, and you also said that this particular drug that what is this psychedelic story you got to do some sort of stuff out that you use out in Mexico? Yeah,
so anyone watching who might be interested in Graham Hancock, for example, has probably heard the word ayahuasca, which is psychedelic from the Amazon, basically, which combines two plants. One plant contains something called DMT, dimethyltryptamine, which is a chemical that we have in our pineal glands. So it's not a chemical, it's a naturally occurring substance. And it's thought that when people have, shall we say, woo-related experiences, that it's their pineal gland releasing DMT. But the only trouble is, if you eat processed foods, alcohol, or you're, smoking, the pineal gland becomes inactive, and so you don't get a release of DMT. But the DMT in the leaves of the plant within the ayahuasca brew essentially gives you that experience, the psychedelic experience. It's also worth mentioning that in our stomachs, apparently there's an enzyme, which Graham Hancock often talks about, and that enzyme stops you from being able to ingest DMT and have a psychedelic experience. So the second ingredients of ayahuasca switches off that enzyme so that you can take the plant medicine, etc., and then have that psychedelic experience. And this is something that my wife's got into, and she's now become a full-blown psychonaut. And and she's now part of a shamanic group, and the stories that she tells me are just incredible. And I've also been doing ayahuasca, but only in the microdosing form for a while. But I do plan to join that group when I return to Mexico eventually. But for anyone who doesn't know, ayahuasca is used for like a number of things. It's hard to explain to people that it takes you to a spiritual realm where you can be healed physically and emotionally and spiritually. that is a hard thing to explain to the average person on the street who just won't believe what you're telling them. But apart from that, there's also other benefits that you can get, which I also get through microdosing, which is like increased focus and a better mood. For example, once you start taking it, it's very hard to feel depressed or unmotivated. It's not like you're under the influence of a drug. It sort of makes you have a tendency to lean towards being productive and solving problems and always just being nicer, if that makes sense. It just brings out the best in you without giving you a, sort of drug-related chemical experience. I can recommend it to anyone, but I don't think it's legal outside of Mexico, which is a shame because, I think it could save a lot of people a lot of misery because it also treats depression. And there are a lot of people studying ayahuasca right now in the medical professions because they've discovered that it can create brand new neural pathways in the brain, and that it seems to understand if somebody is addicted to, say, heroin or alcohol, and after a few sessions they don't have that need in their body anymore because they've been treated spiritually. On the spiritual side, they've been shown the damage that they're doing to themselves, and they're made to feel the pain in a way that affects them, and they're shown the damage that they're doing to other people, and they're made to feel the pain that they put on other people. But at the same time, it's rebuilding their neural pathways so they don't even need or think about the substances that they were addicted to. But what I've noticed, Neil, in the last year, in the Daily Fail, there's been a lot of articles damning ayahuasca and saying, this person took it and they ended up committed suicide after they took it. And I genuinely think that this is a campaign to stop people from being able to help themselves and improve themselves. Because if you read those stories, they're horrific, and they're designed to be horrific. They're designed to make you think, I'm not touching that, because the average guy in the UK, the three counties Cockney is going to read that article and say, oh, I'm not going to touch that, mate. You leave it out. You know what I mean? And they're going to miss out on an experience that can improve an aspect of their life that wouldn't be improved otherwise.
Reminds me of something called LDN. I don't know if you've ever heard of that. It's called low dose naltrexone.
Okay. Not heard of that.
Yeah, it's legal. It's perfectly legal to take. And apparently it was discovered by this guy in the 1980s who's now passed on. He was a doctor or something. But he was helping people with heroin addiction. And apparently this naltrexone or something is what they give them to stop them having that addiction, like switches off the connections in the brain, which sounds a little bit like what you're describing just there.
Yeah, it sounds very similar, doesn't it?
Yeah. So I take it as well because it's good for sort of inflammation. It switches off your brain for inflammation, all sorts of things like that. And it's I wouldn't say it's a cure-all, but it seems to treat people for a lot of different things. LDN. There's a whole kind of discussion page on various forums about it, and that's how we found out about it. So Sorry,
what's the ingredients? What's in LDN?
Not absolutely sure myself because I'm not sort of a chemical person really, but naltrexone, low dose naltrexone.
Okay. I'll have to look into that.
Yeah, low dose. So you get it in small doses, like saying micro doses are good. And I just take like 3 drops, but you have to find, they say, your sweet spot. So you kind of start off small over a period of maybe a week to 10 days, then you increase the amount of drops on your tongue. It's a pipette.
Right.
The most common side effect is that maybe in the first couple of days, usually on the first day only, you get a bit of a headache, depending.
Okay.
But once you get past that stage, you're actually on your way, sort of thing. And within a few months, like any inflammations or aches and pains or arthritical problems kind of reduce. So I wouldn't say it cures it, but continued taking of it seems to reduce those sorts of problems.
Right. No, and that's very good. It does sound very similar to magic mushrooms and ayahuasca microdosing. Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard about magic mushrooms. They're researching it into Canada or something like that. My son was telling me about it.
Okay.
As
Has he
well.
tried it?
Yeah, he's tried the magic mushrooms, and I think they are making it legal in the UK, or maybe in Scotland. I don't know, because he lives in Edinburgh, so I'm assuming. Yeah,
Yeah.
but he's I won't say his name for legal reasons. But he told me about it. It's amazing that my kids have to educate me on these things. The world at large.
Yeah.
So when they take this in Mexico, do they think they could try to think where they solve their problems on this inner level or something with it? Do they come out then of that trip, if you like, for want of a better word, with the ability to then physically solve their problems or issues or?
Yeah, and this is what people find hard to believe, and it kind of links in with the story that you told once. I think it was like a psychic focus group operating in a basement where the guy would fix people's problems through the spirit world, but they would fix them physically. Similarly, there's a building in Mexico City, an apartment building that was built by an English guy, and there was a lady in there who was classed as a witch, and she was doing something similar in the early 1900s, and a guy went to live with her to debunk her, and he said that through like spiritual and psychedelic means she was manifesting organs and fixing people, and he stayed with her for the rest of his life and documented all of this. I don't know if you've ever heard of that.
No, that's interesting.
I came across, I'll have to look up some links for you, but I came across it quite randomly last month in Mexico City, and I saw this lady on the street doing like a play at night, some people watching her, and she was right in front of this building, and it's almost like a sort of Gothic-y apartment building, and that they mentioned, they explained to us what it was, so we looked it up, and apparently this guy spent his whole life eventually becoming her apprentice, and she was doing something similar with like shamanic rituals to manifest and transplant organs into people who were badly in need of operations that would probably have killed them, through regular surgery. And it sounds hard to believe until you look into it, and then it's hard to explain.
Yeah, the story, and I can't remember his name now, but he was the guy that I'm thinking of was he was for a time a fireman in his life, and then he started to mess around with the Ouija board in the downtime at the fire station, and a message came through that said basically about his baby that had died was okay and being cared for in the spirit world, but they said that a doctor will work with you in the future. And later on, it transpired that this doctor, who was a doctor at Moorfields Eye Hospital, again, I forget his name, who had died like maybe 6 years earlier, was now coming through in trance through this guy who was the fireman, and he would start to do like psychic operations on people. And he said how he did it was that he would lift their spirit out of their body, and then he would operate on the spirit body and then lower it back down into the physical body. And this guy traveled around the world doing healing on people with the aid of this doctor spirit from Moorfields Eye Hospital. Although he's from Moorfields Eye Hospital, he was a doctor as well, so he wasn't just doing eyes and things. I think they called it the Middlesex Hospital when he was actually there, and it later became known as Moorfields Eye Hospital. And but it was interesting because he would travel all around the country and around the world doing it. And even doctors would send their own patients to this guy because they said, we don't know what else to do. And then even doctors themselves who were trying to treat themselves for illnesses would then go and see this guy to get treated. And they had some amazing results.
How do people explain that? I just don't know. Again, skeptics would always have an answer.
Yeah.
And it's not even worth going into that, I guess.
No. Well, that's the thing about skeptics. I mean, it's always the funniest thing is that skeptics that explain how it's all done at a psychic demonstration or a mediumship demonstration, how it's all done, but they've never actually been to the demonstration themselves to actually see it being done. They
don't need to, do they?
No, they don't need to. No, I mean the things I know from my own personal experiences, as mediums will tell you, I suppose, that mediumship is real. Because when I'm doing it myself, I'm getting the images in my head clairvoyantly. I'm not taking anything for it, no drugs or anything. It's literally tuning in and doing something. Now, I'm not saying that I can just be in the street and go, ping, I'll do a reading on someone like that. You have to get in the right kind of state. And it's like saying, well, you have to get in the right state to have a dream. You can't just go, oh, I think I'll have a dream, and sort of like shut your eyes and you're having a dream. You have to relax your mind. Your mind drifts off into an state, an alpha state, and eventually you go into that dream. Well, so it takes a bit of time. With mediumship, it takes a little bit of time to get into that state. And the more you start to do it, the more it starts to happen, and the ball starts to roll, and you start to get things coming through. But the average skeptic will not understand any of that, because they'll just think that you're cold reading or something, you know.
Yeah, and they won't bother looking. They won't bother going in deep.
Yeah.
Which is what the guy did in Mexico City to stay with the lady that they called the witch. He made the effort to go in and see what was happening. And once he actually saw it and understood it, that's why he stayed for the rest of his days as an apprentice. Because it affected so deeply. It affected his worldview and his understanding of reality. So he stayed, never went back. But as for the ayahuasca experiences, I'm always being pressed to go for the full experience, because I've always suffered from visual migraine, which is where you go partially blind for an hour and then you get like the worst hangover in the world. And I'm told that can be stopped permanently through ayahuasca. So
really interesting.
Because I'll let you know how that goes eventually. But strange thing is, I had almost no migraine since I started taking the microdosing.
Interesting.
Which is strange. But the only side effect of microdosing, and this is a bit woo, and you notice this starts and stops when you're taking it or not taking it, is you can be making a cup of tea and there's someone standing next to you and you think, oh my gosh, you turn around and there's no one there. And that happens a lot, and you really feel like a presence for a second. Really jumps you. And I don't know if that's because you're tuning into things on another level, and I can be sitting at my desk and I'll have like people whizzing past me just very quickly, or I'll see something, in the reflection of the monitor, but there's no one there, And I've done experiments with not taking it for a while, and that does go away. So I don't know if a side effect is that you tune into something different.
Could be.
I know that on the first time my wife ever took it, she said that at the ceremony, they had a mass shared UFO experience. Like, as the substance starts to kick in slowly, the first thing that happened before they had any other kind of visual experience was that they noticed craft in the sky of different shapes, sizes, colors, movements, and they're all describing the same thing. But of course, if you're not there and, you're a skeptic, you're not going to believe it. But when you hear them talking about it with such passion, because they were there and they were affected by it, you can't help but believe them. And this leads on to something else about the ayahuasca experience, which is kind of unbelievable, which is that a lot of people wake up the next morning. This is in my wife's group, at least, and they say they had a whole night's journey of being explained to them that they're actually an extraterrestrial from another galaxy, another universe, that they're on planet Earth to be given a human experience to learn something that their spirit needs to progress. And so they're actually not human, and they'll never incarnate as a human being again, and haven't before. And this is their one experience on Earth.
Wow.
So how do you explain that?
That sounds very Dr. Stephen Greerish, doesn't it?
Yeah. Although, would Stephen Greer do ayahuasca? I don't know.
As a medical doctor, I think he would probably come around to it, understanding drugs and the effect of them. I think he probably would be open to it, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, he's a very spiritual sort of guy by his sort of stuff. He's talked about his friends that have died and he sort of feels their spirit or something like that. So he seems to be quite open to the idea of spirit and stuff, which is interesting. Yeah. And talking of Stephen Greer, it's interesting that it's a shame that he wasn't invited to these I don't know, eyewitness testimonies or whatever they called it in Washington. He seems to be the guy that kind of tried to get the ball rolling years ago and has now been left out of it, really.
Because his original conference was like 10, 15 years ago now?
It was in 2000, I think.
2000?
Yeah, because what happened, he said they did it like in the July of 2000, their Washington Press Club thing, where they were getting like 20 witnesses to swear on the Bible or whatever it was, or swear an allegiance or whatever they were swearing on. Then talk about
the flag. Swear on the flag.
Yeah,
wow.
yeah,
Allegiance to the United States of America.
Yeah, that's it. And he said, what happened? It was all going well, and then 9/11 happened like a month later, and it all got buried under all that, and kind of forgotten about. Yeah. So, I mean,
the White House saw it on TV and they said it's time to bring out the energy weapons.
Yeah, that's right. We can't cope with this. Yeah, let's drop a load of ayahuasca and bring out an energy weapon.
Yeah.
And what's your take on this this eyewitness disclosure thing that's been happening in Washington with David Grush and the other people, Fraser and stuff?
I think it's interesting that we've had a strange couple of months ufology-wise with the balloons and other objects
over Alaska that they shot down. Yeah.
See, to me, it kind of looks like a narrative playing out.
It does, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I have a hard time. I know that Ben won't like me saying this, but I have a hard time with anyone that goes on mainstream media with anything to say. I just can't trust it. As much as I love the subject of ufology, and as much as I know that there are so many people out there with genuine stories and experiences, anyone that comes from any of the services, so to speak. I mean, was that guy was it the Navy or the Air Force?
The Air Force, David Grush. Yeah.
Air Force. I just find it hard to trust them, especially if you consider the fact that this is playing out. 1 week we've got balloons, then we've got UFOs, of which they don't tell us what the nature of them was. And now we've got this playing out on mainstream news. There could be so many reasons why. Is it a distraction for, covering up Hunter Biden's tax evasion and laptop scandal? Or is it that... Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I was going to say, no, it could be loads of distractions, but it's interesting. I was watching David Icke the other day, and he was talking about the fact that it could be Werner von Braun's warning about a fake alien invasion. And
I was just about to say that.
He wrote a book, apparently. I never realized this until I saw this David Icke kind of briefing where he talked about a book, a fictional book, that Werner von Braun wrote about setting up a Mars colony. And the guy in the book who set up the Mars colony was a guy called Elon. Yeah. And I thought, my God,
that's incredible.
That's freaky as well, isn't it? Yeah.
That is pretty freaky. I didn't know that about the book either.
No, it's just first news to me. But according to Ike, he's saying it may be this Werner von Braun warning is now coming to fruition. And so, like the narrative who described the balloons, to kind of get it in our head about, unidentified flying objects, being led down the golden path. We shot some objects down, and literally a few months later, we're getting this guy come and say, America's got these down craft and and you're giving all this information. I mean, the thing that I find a bit weird is that if it is true, and they are being honest and saying, we've got to look into it, they're going to have a bit of a problem, because they've then got to open up all the presents that we're asking for them to open up. And that's a lot of presents talking about animal mutilations, all the negative stuff,
Yep.
It's not all up and light.
Vindicated.
Yeah. And are they going to try and separate the wheat from the chaff on that? I don't know.
It makes you wonder how they would roll it out logistically, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Bearing all those factors in mind. But I tell you what, now, I don't know if you ever look on Instagram and TikTok much. I mean, I only use them for promoting music. But there's a lot of videos that come up where people are filming the sky in the United States, and they're saying, what's wrong with the sky? And it's split down the middle. And it can be like dark on one side and light on the other, but with a straight line right from the horizon to space. And there are quite a lot of these videos around. And are they fake, again, to spread the word that something weird's going on in the sky? Or are they real? Because sometimes I'm thinking, how do they get all these different people to be looking at something? And they just seem to be random people off the street, people approaching a crosswalk. So sometimes it makes me think they must be looking at something. So is that blue beam, or are they going to say that's part of alien tech that's going to be a threat, but really is blue beam and they're doing everything? There are so many possibilities on that.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to watch with interest and see how this plays out. Apparently, Grush said that he was going to give all the names of the witnesses that given him the information, but he has to do it behind closed doors. And
see, I don't trust that.
Yeah. I mean, that's apparently happened now. He's meant to have gone into this secure safe room, or whatever they call it, where he can give all the information. Now, it's interesting because they could have asked for that information before he actually testified it, before they went out in public. But he said it publicly so that all the public are aware that he's got this information. So it's a deliberate feed to the public. And, if it sounds like we're being told, I think we are being buttered up for something. They wouldn't do this. It's not an accident that, oh my God, he's broken through all these loopholes to get this to the stage. I think the path has been smoothed over a little bit to get to this point.
Definitely. Somebody somewhere is engineering it.
Yeah. And like the balloons and things like that, that's like the appetizer. That's the warm-up movie, if you like. Just to put it into our heads.
It's the first 5 minutes of Independence Day.
Yeah. It's going to be interesting to see how it plays out in the autumn. Anyway, I think we're going to have to call this a close now. Although normally the Paranormal Peep Show runs for nearly 2 hours, but I've got an early start in the morning and stuff. And I know that if Andy was here, we'd be asking 120 more questions. But I know that I want to try and get another edit in onto this because I'm hopefully going to meet up with Mark and Irene this coming Saturday. They're the founders of the Paranormal UK Radio Network. Mark is coming over to the UK for a visit. I know he's going to visit Stonehenge with Irene. And so I'm going to try and meet them near Stonehenge at a pub. So I said I'll take it on my camera, my audio recorder, and maybe we could do a little round the table discussion at the pub if it doesn't get too noisy. So I'm going to hopefully populate part 2 of the show with some of that as well. So it won't just be our discussion. It'll be a few other things as well. So I'd like to say thank you, Gary, for your time anyway, for spreading the time to chat to me. And I know I'd like to do a part 2 with you as well at some point.
I've covered almost nothing of what I had.
Barely scratched. Yeah, I know. I know we barely scratched the surface. I know. I think the trouble is we were waffling on too much about Hemel Hempstead. The delights of Hemel Hempstead.
It's okay. It makes for a more interesting show and more stuff in the can for next time.
Absolutely. It puts Hemel Hempstead on the map as well as Mexico. That's the way I see it.
It does, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you once again, Gary. And we'll listen out for some of your music on various shows. What show can we listen out for it when that might be streamed? Anything that we got to kind of, would it have your name in the credits, do you think?
Well, if it's a movie, it has my name in the credits, but if it's a TV show, they generally leave it out. But if anyone's interested, look me up on Spotify as The Death Beats, which is my current band name, which is a project which is retro synth, drum and bass, and 80s synthwave. That is my most popular musical alias.
Excellent. All right, we'll do that. Thank you very much indeed, Gary Robinson. And we'll catch you next time on the Paranormal Peep Show. Hopefully a couple of months down the road. Maybe you'll be back in Mexico by then. I don't know. But,
we'll see.
We'll see how we get on. All right. Nice one. Thank you so much. Take care.
Bye. Cheers, brother.
Bye-bye.
Well, as I mentioned there in part 1, I did actually meet up with Mark and Irene at a pub outside Stonehenge, and we decided to record our second part of our show actually in the pub. So it's a bit of a drift down memory lane, like the Cock and Balls pubs that we used to have recordings with. And this is for real this time, actually in a real life pub. So listen out for myself, Mark and Irene, and Irene's husband Brian, as we all have a round the table chat. Enjoy.
Hi, everybody. This is Mark Johnson, and we are here in person. I wish I could say it was at our standard pub, the Coffin Ball. We're actually at the Swan Inn in Stoford in the United Kingdom. And I'm here with Irene Allen and Neil Geddes Ward, Irene's husband Brian. We're sitting here having a chat and, of course, talking about all things strange and unusual here in the land of Merlin, King Arthur, and all.
Yeah, well, okay then.
I don't know that because, hey, we're over in Wales and
You're staying in an encore.
we're staying in Wales. We're here.
You've just been to Stonehenge.
Just visited Stonehenge today. Very lovely.
Next to the world, for Roland Baths, above.
Mm-hmm.
Take a sponge.
And Monday, Kidwelly Castle, where part of the Monty Python film was.
Oh, really? Yeah, that's right. Mine with the rabbit.
Yeah, that went, no, it was the French.
Oh, the French.
The French. Yeah.
Years since I've seen that film. So what was your thoughts on Stonehenge, Mark?
Oh, it's beautiful. I mean, I loved Neolithic sites.
Yeah.
And Stonehenge, I've always wanted to visit in person.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of funny, though, because I visit these sites. It's like old hat. Yeah, I love visiting these old places, and because they do give off such an energy. And I'm, of course, very fascinated with the building techniques, not what they tell us how they were made, but how they were really made. And,
Well, do you think otherwise?
yeah, well, they certainly were chipped away by Stone Age people with copper tools, transported with logs on rollers.
If you look at the actual bluestones in Wales, they are formed, even though they're in big rocks, but you can see you could just kind of chip them out, eat them out.
Yeah, but
Look.
Is there like a big Stonehenge gap in the cliffs?
yeah, but
There is a bit of a bald spot.
well, weren't you saying some of these stones came over from Wales?
Yeah, we can bluestones from Wales.
So how in the heck would they transport them
Well,
back a couple thousand years BC?
I think they were bought on barges. On boats. Oh, I know, but I thought they came from barges. That's what I'm sure I saw something out. Hundreds of years ago, new stones came on barges across the Severn Estuary. And then they were,
But they're so big and so many tons.
they were put on carts and pulled by oxen, horses, and all sorts.
so there's a lot.
So they say.
Well, yeah, and the bluestones, if you go to see the bluestones in Wales, when you buy them, they actually sell to you.
That's interesting.
The one, like we were talking about, the crystalline structure, something in the granite.
Now that's interesting because we interviewed Hugh Newman for our show last year.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Doing stones. He talks about giants on record, and he said there's been giant skeletons found around everywhere and in the UK, and apparently giant skeletons have been found, if memory serves me correct, around the Stonehenge area. And there's another lady we interviewed a few years ago called Maria Wheatley, who also talks about.
We've got Maria.
Yeah, and she talks about some guy that saw beams of energy. I can't remember the Stonehenge or from stone circles, and the guy that she said reported it was a very straight-laced kind of colonel type or something that was. He might have been even an engineer, but it was very interesting what she said. But certainly, the official English heritage version of Stonehenge is very different from the undercurrents of Stonehenge that we're hearing about.
Yeah.
Well, that's typical of most of these historic sites.
Yeah,
especially when, as what we were talking about earlier, the fact that all the stones, they're flat.
Yeah, so they'll be knocked down.
They're all knocked down through time and put back together how they think it looked like.
That's right. There are, for those listening, there are pictures in existence. You can find them, I presume, on the internet. I've certainly seen some of the early part of the 20th century where it shows them actually hoisting the stones back up, putting them into a place, and they may not be actual in the place that they were 5,000 years ago. They might be off slightly, but it's their best guess. And that's not the only set of stones that have been resurrected. There is the Avebury stone circle in the village of Avebury, and many of those stones were laying flat. And I believe there's a story going around where, and again, Maria Wheatley is the expert on this to talk about, there's a stone that they found, and underneath it was a skeleton. I think it was called the barber skeleton. It was called so called because he had a leather apron, and I think he had either like barber tools in there and a pair of glasses as well. But apparently, when they were trying to hoist these stones up in the Middle Ages to put them upright, this one clapped back down on him. He was the unlucky guy that got it. So no one had haircuts for at least a year.
So they can get a new barber.
Yeah, that's right. There was a vacancy. But yeah, I mean, did you feel any kind of energies as you went around?
I personally did not, but there were so many people around.
Yeah.
We really couldn't get close enough.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
I was more interested in all the birds sitting up on the stones. But when I was a kid, we used to play on the stones back in the 50s.
Yeah.
I used to feel the vibrations for the stones.
Interesting.
Wow.
Interesting.
Had a mark.
Were people climbing up onto the top thing?
I was marked
too high.
You know the ones that
Yeah.
were going down. Those kids,
Yeah.
don't go all them.
Yeah.
And mum and dad always bought picnic.
Yeah. A friend of mine said they remember
About
having
50s.
picnics. Yeah. They're a bit older than me, so they remember having picnics at Stonehenge. Yeah. It's an interesting thought because it's just totally.
I really wanted him to feel safe.
well, me too. But
I didn't realise it. Honestly, I didn't realise it was going to be so far away.
yeah, so far away, and so many people. Now that you don't drive up to it. You drive and catch a shuttle bus.
Yeah. There was a lot of controversy back in the late 90s, early 2000s, because I think English Heritage were planning to build like an underpass or something.
That's correct.
Yeah. And a lot of people opposed it, didn't they?
right.
I think it was overturned at some point.
Yeah, and so much traffic goes through that road. Like it's on duty. Some summers times, and it's just blown.
Yeah.
And it just creates too much
Nice.
problems with the stones. And
Yeah.
worried. And they were going to build an underpass.
Yeah.
To go through there, and they objected strongly.
Yeah.
Because it would divert a lot of traffic with it.
Yes. Yeah.
Plus, you don't know what you're going to hit. And let's face it, that's one of the things that we're learning about lately is how much stuff is so buried underground.
Yeah.
And whenever they have an archaeological find, it's usually because they're doing some kind of construction and digging.
Absolutely.
And then they find bones, they find artifacts, they find God knows what.
Yeah.
And they're only given a certain amount of time to. That's right. Photograph, sit and log it.
Yeah.
Before the construction is complete.
Yeah. I've got an interesting, funny story, and I won't say his name. My brother's married to a Welsh girl, as I said, and he lives in Wales. Now, his father-in-law is a retired builder, and apparently he had found something like a tomb down the end of his garden. Like, one stone thing covered in leaves, and he digging around it, pries the lid off somehow. He found this skeleton, and he had spurs on. He seemed to be like a kind of cavalier, a knight or cavalier type of guy with a sword. He had spurs on his shoes and everything like that. And he was just there at the end of the garden. So what would you think he's going to do? The responsible thing, call up Welsh Heritage or whoever it might be. Hi, can you come and check out tonight? No, what he got is a bin bag. Oh, he shoved it in the bin and drove it to the dump. Yeah. He just kept quiet about it, yeah. Because he knew that if he called in those people, this project is going to get stopped or something. Yeah.
They're just
But lots of farmers do that, apparently. I've heard this before.
Yeah, they just plow over.
Yeah. Cover it up and keep quiet.
Because they don't, because that's their livelihood. That's how they make money.
Yeah.
Yes, there's the story in the newsfeed on the Primes. Yeah, a guy was doing some drain work and he's uncovered it on this floor.
Wow.
Fun of it. It's on now, I think. It's quite a sight. One of those uncovered.
Well, as you know, I lived in the Orkney Islands for 5 years. My daughter still lives up in the Orkney Islands, which is a group of islands off the north coast of Scotland. Everyone calls it the Orkneys, but you get told off by them, they don't like it. It's got to be called the Orkney Islands or Orkney because it's a county, technically. And there was a farmer there that discovered a I don't know, he felt that the ground was slightly hollow when every time he was driving his machinery over it, it felt kind of a bit spongy or something. So he shoved the pole down and it just kept going and going and going. So eventually he shoved corks down and he found a whole bloody tomb under his garden. And so he called in people and discovered that it was actually a burial site within his garden. And there was like skeletons of eagles in it, as well as human bones. And it became known locally as the Tomb of the Eagle. So now it's a tourist site up in the Orkney line. And it's on this guy's land. It's not like run by the Historic Scotland Group. It's his own private kind of parade, if you like. But in Orkney, there's parades galore everywhere you look. You know, there's a bump you're driving to. I mean, we went for a look at a dig on the Isle of Westray where we live, and they were holding a special come and meet the archaeologists day. So we thought, oh, well, we'll go and chat to them about that, you know. So we drove over these little bumps to them and got there. And the guy was saying, yeah, we found all these bones here in this house, and this house goes back about 3,000 years. But the interesting thing is that it's like houses upon houses upon houses over centuries. And so the present house that's here today was built in the 1930s, and the people that live in that house now are the descendants of these Neolithic people that live right here next door. You know, that's incredible. They just kept living on the same side all the century. Right? Yeah. But he said, there's a whole village behind you. Well, we said, well, where is the village? He says, oh, you just drove over it. So I was like, that's what I just say.
Bumps were people and buildings and
Yeah.
This place is quite old.
Yeah, I think it's been given a stylized historic look.
it's all. About the park. Yeah, absolutely.
Take a photo. More on the front hall.
Yeah. And there's something that rings across out there as well.
You just saw something?
It's just so drifted past shadow thing.
Really?
Something like
Yeah, it's in a draft, but I think that's the door.
it's all. I enhanced it, shall we say?
Yeah.
Happen you to a blind.
Maybe close.
It's really neat. Just by the way this is done. This would all be pegged. There's no pegs.
Facing.
Good look. I've got out screws or nails would be wooden pegs. Of both.
It probably wouldn't be safe now, would it? Yeah, they've restructured it inside.
I mean, at least they're 100 years old.
What did it say on that website when we looked up, we decided to come to this one?
I don't remember.
Seen it, it's in Facebook messaging, common Skype messaging, saying how long do you 10 pubs around Stonehenge or something like that.
It was probably used by the people of Stonehenge.
10 old pubs around Stonehenge.
Well, wait, when you spend all day, hauling 30-ton blocks in the place, yeah, you're ready for a cold beer. On the end for the old post runs or something like that, because it is on Sea Leg Road.
Cool.
And you've got that big old barn at the back. They're actually been sort of like stable or something like that.
Yeah.
Buzzing air tables.
Why not? It took us where?
Or find out. Here's weird.
A lot of lands, my experience, depending on who you speak to, they take over a pub and they don't know much about it. And where I used to live, there was a very, very old pub there that they had found, I think, in the mid-1990s when they were doing some renovations. They had actually found some original drawings on the upstairs wall that had been drawn by someone. But it was drawings, and I think the technical word for them is cartoon, but obviously we think of cartoons as animation, but not line drawings. And people had hats of like the 17th century, like Dick Turpin type of hats in the drawings. And this guy that took over the pub was kind of moaning, I can't paint over it. I want to paint and give it liquor paint. I'm not allowed to, because this had been framed in glass and kept there as heritage in this listed building. And these pub owners, they just want to like plough the whole lot. Oh my God, look at that rain coming down.
Well, we'll get another route.
Yeah, that's
Or another thing?
sure. Yeah,
Lava.
yes, I got the same thing you did.
Carlsberg.
Yeah,
What about you?
If they do a low alcohol lager or non-alcoholic lager, I'd appreciate it. Be cool.
On wine, yeah.
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 More written.
Yeah, you do. You made the box. The best getting wonderful. Hey.
well, now that rain's really coming in.
Yeah, it is. I've read somewhere it's like the rainiest August on record for a long, long time. And normally August is really hot, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay. Because my daughter's birthday is slap bang in the middle of August, and we have always remembered really, really hot weather on her birthday. So,
And I thought it's supposed to be fairly nice tomorrow and for half the week.
right.
I'm hoping it's nice tomorrow because we're going in the dark.
Yeah.
And we're going to sit under the vagina. If it's nice, by a fountain, and we're going to drink fast by the behind. I said a girls, then change it to a bottle.
Yeah.
It's my perfect spot. No, it's
Straight out of the bottle with the straw.
And then Wednesday, we're off to London. Tower of London, wow.
Oh, you are making it to London. I thought that was
So far, it's
No.
yet. I mean,
Not far. Touch wood.
yeah, the original place we were going to stay got rented out, and we weren't going to go. And then Brian actually knew of a cheaper hotel right outside the area that one could take the train in and go see some fights. Excellent. Yeah, it'll just be an overnight stay.
Yeah. Buckingham Palace. I remember showing an American friend of mine around London about 15 years ago. And it was the first time I'd seen Buckingham Palace. And I saw it, I thought, crikey, I always thought this place was really huge, but it doesn't look so huge once you're actually there.
It is. Look at it all. The actual real house, Buckingham House, was owned by Lord Buckingham. Back in St. George's Day, King George's Day, King Charles or something. And he married, and several like this, he married Queen Charlotte. And he wanted a residence in London just because all the palaces were outside London. So he wanted a residence in London for her. So he bought Buckingham House off the Lord Buckingham. And that is only like that, right? Little. But over the years, he renovated it, made it bigger, and our successors made it bigger. And it's a big courtyard in the middle.
Yeah.
And the whole palace goes round over 200 bedrooms, where the original Buckingham House, not Buckingham Palace, the original Buckingham House had 60 rooms. This is over 200
Right.
now. And but the original Buckingham House, do you know what you see on the television, on the balcony and all that? And then the carriageway and it goes through into the courtyard at the back. Right opposite there is Buckingham Palace.
Right.
Little piece
Right.
with big wings coming off of it.
I see. And see.
Yeah, so it is quite big. When you think of it that way,
Yeah.
it's the biggest plot of land in London. What how many acres?
Yes. Yeah. With the land as well. It is.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember when I did show my American friend round 15 years ago, we travelled through the tubes of London, obviously to get to these places. I said, okay, you want to see Big Ben, you want to see Buckingham, okay.
Yeah.
And so we were plotting it all out,
Yeah.
and we came across a bus cut in the...
He wants to see my old company.
All right.
Why is it?
Okay, well, that'll be fascinating.
They go land.
We came across a busker in London Underground playing his guitar. And she'd never seen one before. She goes, oh, cool, the Oscar. I said, yeah. I said, yeah. I said, oh, we have a tradition here in the UK. It's that she goes, can I thank you, when you put some money in guitar case or whatever, you've got to give a bow like that to him. Of course. And she goes, really? I said, yeah, you've got to give a bow. It's a custom. You all do it. It's considered rude if you don't do it. She goes, okay. She threw some coins in, and she gave a great big bow like that. So the guy and I was just cracking up laughing. And she looked round at me. You won't get up with us. Yeah, never get me to take around London. And that's the lesson learned from there. Not anymore. But, yeah, I guess you might see the change in the guard. I don't know when they do that. Is that midweek or...
When do I do change of the dog?
Around by 11 o'clock, I think.
Every day?
Yeah, you guys not going to stand there for 3 or 4 days in a row.
No, they usually faint before that, don't they? They usually pass out on hot days, yeah. And I think they'd be drenched as rats by, if the weather stays like the way it is. Now, if Buckingham Palace haunted, I know Hampton Court is.
Nothing house That's the oldest part of the palace.
Yeah.
So yeah. The apparently is.
Right. Now, Hampton Court, I remember going to as a kid.
Well, I used to go there as a kid as well.
Yeah. That was cool.
Hampton Court in my bed.
Is it Anne Boleyn that goes around there? Is it ghost? Supposedly.
She goes everywhere.
Yeah, she's a tourist herself.
What's that castle near where we used to live? What's that castle where Anne Boleyn is up there? Where we used to live? Either castle.
Right.
That was her family home, Either Castle.
Right.
So she went all there. She went all the town, unfortunately.
Right.
So she goes back on.
Yeah. There must be various versions of it. Yeah. Well, I suppose as a ghost, you can literally just, transport yourself from one location to another. I was telling my wife the other day about your ghost story, and I said, well, because I was hoping she'd be here, and I said, I'll get Irene to tell you about the mysterious stranger they picked up when they were going to the airport. And so I told her about it, but I said, I'll try and get you to say it. So can you say it for the benefit of my wife and listeners again? Because I found it fascinating.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
We were on the way to Bristol Airport because my cousin in Scotland had just died.
Yeah.
And his funeral was on that day, and we had to get a flight up to Scotland and back in one day.
Right.
We flew up and back because of the dogs. I mean, we could only get it from Bristol Airport, so we are driving through all of these country lanes, past the M4, driving through these country lanes, thinking we're heading towards the airport, but we're not. We're just going and going. But it was about 4 o'clock in the morning. We had to be at the airport by 6 or 5 or something like that, because it was, I think, a 6 o'clock flight.
Yeah.
And it was a misty, cold January morning, freezing cold. And we'd go down all these little lanes and nothing but hedgerows were going past us. There was no houses, just hedgerows. And then out of nowhere, this man appears. And he's walking along. So I said, quick, stop and ask him away. So we asked him how to get to the airport. He said, it's all away from me. He said, I have to show you. And he got to the car. Before we could say anything, he got to the car. This is stranger sitting behind me. It's a stranger sitting behind me, right? And he's driving, and I thought, wasn't he could stab us in the back of the head? He could do anything. So I'm sitting like this, talking, trying to talk to him, keep an eye on me. And he said, turn right here, turn left there, and this, that, and the other. We get to the airport, and just before we get to the short stay car park, he says, stop here. I get out. He said, well, how are you going to get back? He said, don't worry. He said, I can get back there all right. And what's cool thing with rolls with him in the car, these rolls. And I turned around to Brian and said, this isn't fair. They'll give some money or something. I looked at Brian, and as soon as I looked back, it was nowhere to be seen. Nowhere to be seen.
Now he got out of the car?
Got out of the car.
Yeah.
He got out of the car as well.
Okay.
Oh,
so you were talking to him, you turned to Brian, when you looked back, he was gone.
Then it's just astonished. So about a week later, it was bothering me. About a week later, I said to Brian, we still argue over this now. I said, that boat that we picked up on the way to Bristol Airport. So I said, what did you wait for? What did he look like to you? So he gave me a description. It's totally different to this person.
That's weird.
He said he had a bag. I said he didn't have a bag. You said he had glasses. He didn't have glasses. Why?
The guy I saw a white beard, glasses.
But you said he was very smartly dressed and not smartly, don't prune. But he was well. To me,
it's a great man.
Silver. Someone like
Penny. And he had what do they call it? Something like that.
Yeah, anorak type thing.
Yeah, an anorak type thing. And he said that he used to walk from the airport back to Bristol used to come out at 2 o'clock in the morning. It's a long way to walk. Yeah.
He's old.
Yeah.
They used to do the lanes.
No wonder he knew his way to the airport.
Yeah.
Well, but the point is, you don't think he existed. 'Cause
Yeah.
he was there. All right, he was there. We helped us get to the airport.
When he got out of the car, he disappeared.
It disappeared.
The weird.
You're not a living person.
Yeah.
No, but he got us
We're
to the airport.
totally lost.
Yeah.
And the point is, the cousin that was up in Scotland had died. My favourite cousin, Jim. Okay. And if I hadn't been at her funeral, I would have been devastated. Yeah, no, we would have liked it. So it was like he was self.
A guardian angel type rule. Yeah, that's interesting.
Well, what about it?
Yeah.
In down there and shout all the way she bloody lost again.
But there's the fact that you two both saw somebody completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And him vanishing.
Yeah.
Just disappeared at the airport.
Lemmy.
That's just great.
It would be interesting if you could retrace his steps, go to Bristol Airport and see if he's walking the streets again. Early hours.
Well, we have actually been back to Bristol. We go out to Italy.
Yeah.
Well, we didn't go that route.
Yeah.
We went the right route. They've been told below me.
Bristol's best kept secret. Yeah. And so there's another ghost story that I like of yours where, well, I don't think it was, but technically I suppose it wouldn't be a ghost, but it was, well, I think you was looking through your son's house in there. Was it in London? And you saw this maid or someone the flat.
No, that big house had been converted into flats.
And
Well,
she asked when she saw you. Yeah.
1 minute. Got a piece of lemon in my
Yeah. Lemonade, she my dear what?
It was a beautiful house. Absolutely beautiful house. I loved it. I would have bought it as it was. But a friend of Brian's bought it, and they decided to turn it into apartments.
Well, actually, and I knock it down. I feel 6 houses on the block.
Right.
There was a monkey puzzle tree to the right of the house. The preservation on it. And the guy's partner chopped it down.
No.
So all planning stopped there. Right. Thanks, Dave, I just kept it fused because he just went in there on a Saturday. He's a bully, this guy.
Yeah.
He's an ex-rugby player.
It's a
Bully. Yeah. He's a bully. I won't name him. He's a bully. And he just went in there with a couple of his, because he coaches rugby guy, Yamalai. And he went in there and knocked it down, chopped it back, knocked it around. It was a beautiful.
Yeah, well, anyway, it was a beautiful house as well. So, they started turning into apartments. So, my son moved in there because he was overseeing the work for wonderful mother. And of course, when he used to go out at night to see his girlfriend or come back, every time he walked through the door, there'd be this woman standing at the top of the stairs. It was a staircase that went up like that. Winding staircase, beautiful, ever so wide. And she'd stand at the top of the stairs like we're stuck here. And he'd just go. He would just go. I'm ignoring her. This is Jamie. You know what Jamie was like. And he'd go back into his flat where he was sleeping. But we went around there this day, and he said, I'll show you around. So he took us all a tour around the house, and we ended up in the attic. Right? And it was obviously where the staff used to stay. Such people that were in service would stay up there and live up there. And we're looking around and everything. Didn't see anything at first. They walked with, the attic was made up like these little rooms. They walked out of this particular room that I was in, and I was the last one to go out. And as I got to the door was about there, right in front of me. As I got to the door, I went like that. She's standing there, and she's looking at me with shock. And I'm looking at her with shock. You know, outside, come on, Mum. I'm looking at this apparition, who was looking at me, and she, as if she could see me, and I know she could see me, because the look on her face was more or less the same as mine, shouldn't it?
Yeah.
When she was dressed as like she was the mayor, what's the major house? Not mayor, the house, what are they called? the women that were top above all the star
Oh, right.
are mistress of,
Yeah, the equivalent of Mr. Hudson, but a lady.
yeah.
Yeah.
And that's what she was. So I knew that. So that's the second. I knew everything more or less about her. What did she knew about me? I don't know. She looked at me as if I was Satan.
Wow, that's interesting.
And it was like, it's honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's why I think it's not like you're seeing the ghost of a person who died.
Yeah.
Like, it was like you both were alive, or might be alive, living, breathing. It just happened to be occupying different times in the same space. But the conditions were right. You could see each other.
Yeah.
But
It does happen to me before I had times. But it was only the fact that they were, Jamie said, well, come on, Mum. But I turned around and looked at them. Of course, that was it. So I went to people. Well, no, did I tell him?
Yeah, you told me. Right. But it's get me interested if these people from the past suddenly wrote in their diary, today I saw a lady looking at me in clothes I've never seen before. Or something. Yeah.
Yeah, no worries later. Wow.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Now, talking of the building work, it reminds me of a story, and I have said this before, but I'll recount it. I actually don't know this story, Brian, but it's a story that I heard from a guy on a plane, and I was going out to Spain, and he sat next to me, and of course, on this plane going back to Spain.
Yes, I know this.
Yes.
I remember you telling us that.
Yeah, it was, there was a lot of Spanish to get. So one of the last guys to get on the plane, I thought he was a Spanish guy, and they announced on the tannoy something about turning your phone to airport this or something like that, and he goes, what does that mean? And I said, I had no clue, sorry. So we got into this little conversation, me and this guy, and my son was here, he was looking out the window, and this guy, I said, are you going on holiday? He goes, no, he said, I live in London. He said, but I'm originally from, he said, I prefer to call it Persia, but, you'd know it stays Iran.
Yeah,
He said, but I live in London and I'm an architect, and I'm going out to Malaga to check on some buildings that I'm running the project for, sort of thing. And I said, oh, okay. So he said, what do you do? And at the time I lived in the Orkney Islands, so we ran this fairy museum stroke gallery. So I happened to have on my phone some photographs of the drawings I'd done. And I said, here you go, look, this is the sort of stuff I'm interested in. So I showed him that sort of stuff. And I told him a few of the weird stories that I'd researched. And what happened was that he then opened up a bit. And I don't think he would have opened up had I just been a run-of-the-mill guy, I suppose. And he said when he was about 18 or 19, he was conscripted into the Iranian army, and him and his army buddy were walking the streets at night in Iran, and he said a sandstorm kicked up. And so they thought shelf, and they went into this mosque. And you have to take your shoes and socks off in there, right? Yeah. And that's what they did. Yeah. That's what they did. And he said to his army buddy, okay, you go to sleep with your back to the wall or lay down, and I'll sit next to you. I've got the gun, and I'll keep a lookout for any signs of trouble. That's what they said. So, okay, so that's what he did. And he said, no matter how hard he tried, this guy, I always called him Hussein, he said he kept waking up. Falling asleep and then waking up. Falling asleep and then waking up. And the third time, he fell asleep and then he woke. I must stay awake. The third time he woke up, he said he noticed this lady crouching down, looking at his feet. And there was a young girl next to this lady, he said about 12, 13 years of age, crouching down, looking at his friend's feet. And he thought, where the hell did they come from? So he tried to wake up his friend by pressing his elbow onto his friend's chest. And he said, how hard he pressed his elbow onto his friend's chest, and his friend did wake up. So he said, Hussein, at that point, I decided I was going to make a run for it. I thought, I don't know why he was going to make it because he had the gun. And he started to wrap the strap of the gun around his arm. But he said that must have attracted the lady to look at him. And he said, instead of looking at his feet, she looked up at him, and he said, as soon as she looked at me in the eye, he said, I knew that she wasn't from this world. And he said, I felt a shiver go down me, and I just knew that she wasn't from this world. And he said, at that point, the lady stood up, and the young girl stood up, and they turned and they walked away. And he said, as they walked away, he noticed they both had cloven-hoofed feet. In other words, those of a goat or a cat or He said, we just vanished into the water and knots. And when he told me that, the shivers went up and down my spine. I can believe it. No, oh my God.
It's a wonderful story. Tell me about the ring. What we do with the ring yesterday.
Well, yeah, we showed you the picture. I've got a whole bunch of high definition pictures of the ring.
Yeah.
And one thing that we discovered is every single picture we took of the ring. At first, I thought it was pareidolia, and we've done so much experimenting with it, we realized now it's not pareidolia. We've tried different lighting techniques, but every single picture you take of the ring, either on the bridge of its nose or in one of the eyes, there are faces they work.
Wow.
Real big, scary-looking or creepy faces of either men, women. Yeah.
I would say this, but on the nose, there's 3 different pictures on the nose of 3 different faces.
Uh-huh.
One of those faces, now years ago, I took a photograph and I noticed there was something in the nose, reflecting in the nose, so I made it bigger. And there was this picture of this person with hair and everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And one of the pictures that he took of the eye, now how can this pareidolia, how can a place that you took years ago appear in the eye when you took it in the nose? You don't see the same face twice. You never ever see the same face twice.
Yeah.
Right?
And you would also get the same kind of discoloration because of the silver ring is not perfect.
Yeah.
Because it's obviously older.
Yeah.
And you would think if you would take multiple pictures in the same spot,
It's not carving in
it
here.
would stay the same, but it changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
At first, I thought it was reflecting me back.
Yeah.
Because of, you could say, head and whatnot and shoulders. But, yeah, this one, look, here's a perfect example. Okay.
Mark came up with what maybe the old set was.
Yeah.
Which I did before.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, let me show you. Okay, this regular picture.
Yeah.
See this eye right here?
Yeah.
Okay, technically would be its left eye. If I zoom in all the way, you tell me what you see.
He's chameleon grey. Or with the 2 eyes down at the bottom. I'm seeing a woman. Oh, okay.
With long hair. See that around his face?
You said alien, right?
Well, I was looking at these 2 patches of red at the bottom, thinking they could be alien.
Oh, you know what? I didn't notice that before.
But their eyes are like round stones. They're rubies.
Yeah.
Barns.
Yeah.
They're round stones fitted in, so they're bulging. But when you look into them like that, it's like going into the depths of hell.
Yeah, here's another close-up of the face.
Yeah.
I'm going to zoom into the nose.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah. It does look like a little face there, doesn't it? With an eye.
Well, it looks like a big face.
Yeah.
And almost looks like the mouth is open.
Yeah. That looks
It looks like the
creepy.
scream.
Yeah. That looks
Tiny
creepy.
scream.
Like something out of Guillermo del Toro film. Or there was a guy that did Pan's Labyrinth. You know, those are
Yeah.
yeah.
It's
And all those boys there's a picture of that. That's famous
free.
Yeah.
painted
Well,
scream.
yes. The mouth open. Yeah.
Yeah. So look, this is the ring upside down, and that's the bridge top of the nose, but it looks like there's another face there.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whatever. And it just keeps happening every time we take a picture.
The one that amazes me is the fact that one of the pictures is the same that I call in the nose years ago. He's called the same person or bloke in the eye.
Yeah. So what is this ring? Is it? I remember you talking about this ring before, the history of it.
History of the ring.
Well, yeah, I mean, she acquired it in Italy.
Yeah.
From someone she knew. And he found it. Did he find it on the tree? Might have found
There used to be an old, very old recluse living in the village.
Yeah.
And his family bought the house that this recluse lived in, hanging on the this ring old recluse used to wear the ring, never take it off.
Mm-hmm.
And his family bought the house after the recluse died, and ringing on an iron nail in the kitchen was the ring, and there was nothing else in the house but the ring and all that. No.
Ooh.
That's what they ring.
Yeah.
He started having bad luck with the ring.
Yeah.
Blamed it on the ring. Being Catholic, he blamed it on the ring, and he found so much bad luck. So he went and buried it in the churchyard.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Yeah, in another churchyard. In
Southwood.
Southwood. I buried in the churchyard. We're in the depth there. In the summer or winter. And then they met me and told me about it. So I said, come dig it up. He said, no. He said, I won't dig it up. You know, it's in a sacred place. It didn't let us lie there now for hours. I'm not going to dig it up. So we went along to the churchyard. And all the graves and everything had been cut with an old mower. They're all nice and flat, and all the grass is down. Except for one tuft of grass in the middle of the mower sticking up.
Mm-hmm.
Right? He said, that's where it is. I said, wow. How can the lawnmower go around and jump with this tuft of grass, you know? What is this tuft of grass is? Anyway, I started pulling at the grass, trying to pull it out, but it was well rude to do. So he got this spade thing that he had and dug it up. Well, dug up the grass, dug up the ring, took the ring, it wasn't wrapped in it, took the ring out of the ground, and it was as shiny and new looking, well, not new looking, but shiny as it was. You saw it yesterday. There was no dirt, no muck, and it come through all those winters, all that bad heaven, nothing on it. So at first he said, well, I said, give me the. He said, you can have it. He said, I don't want it. He said, it's evil. So I took it out, and I've had it ever since. And
You took it to one jeweler.
yeah, we took it to a jeweler, the two of us.
Yeah.
The jeweler was an old Hungarian or somebody like that, or Polish, that come on during the war. And little old man, and he always kept his jewellery shop locked, which was very unusual for it. And in them days, it's not unusual today. So,
Yeah. It's all unusual today.
but in the 70s, it was very unusual to have a locked jewellery shop. You had to ring the bell to get in and everything. And he opened the door, and I had the ring on my hand. Can you tell me something about this? He said, no. You told me to go away. Anyway, I kept persisting. Finally got my feet over the threshold of the door. And he looked at the ring. He said, solid silver, cut for one nugget of silver. He said, hands made. He said, I'm sure he said the eyes were rubies, but no, I think they're garnets. Mm-hmm. He may have said garnets, I don't know. He said, very, very old. Get out of my house. Look out of my house. You're the keeper. Get out of this shop. And he kicked us out the door. Literally kicked us out. I'm like, you don't get out. What? Lock the door behind us and we're lonely again.
My God.
But the actual shank of the ring was so thin. It was not much thicker, a little bit. It was so thin.
Yeah.
Right? Where it'd been worn so much. Well, I was worried about it breaking and losing the ring. So I took it to Samuel's. That Samuel's is not like this old Bulgarian Jew. You know, I said, can you just reshank this ring for me? So they reshanked it. And I said, resize it to my size so I can wear it. So they done that. And I wore it from the age of 21. I had it in my fingers. I was about 8 stone in weight, skinny. My fingers were skinny, right? And that ring still fits my finger now. A few stone heavier. My fingers are a lot fatter, but I have no trouble with that ring. It goes on easy, and when it's on, and it just tightens itself up.
Sounds alive.
Sounds like the One Ring.
It does, memorable.
Maybe that's where they got the idea for the One Ring.
Yeah.
One ring.
We actually sent pictures of it to the British Museum in London, trying to get an idea of how old they thought it might be.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they're looking at pictures, not the actual ring.
Yeah.
And, you know, what it could be a representation of.
Uh-huh.
Because, let's face it, you show it to any Christian, they're going to see the devil.
Yeah.
Because of the horns, the hook nose, the ear. for a while there, because it was found in Italy, we thought it might have been a representation of Pan or a theater.
Yeah.
Then there was a Babylonian, but one of the first civilizations.
Yeah.
There was an old god, holy god.
Randall God.
Yeah. So we thought it might have something to do with that. So, but we don't really know. Now the British Museum seemed to think the ring was almost 400 to 500 years old. Actually, based on the photos.
In the slice on Christopher Lee.
Right, I think it's a lot over all that, and I think it comes from. You see, when they did that, it could be Pan. I was hoping it would be Pan because he was born. I was born. When I said born, it came from the Amalfi Coast of Italy. Well, Pompeii's just down the road. Okay, and they found it on the way when they were excavating ruins. They found a statue of a man doing naughties with a goat.
Right, as you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is a famous
I get cloven feet, people walking through.
Yeah. But I don't know so much now. It could be Amun, which is Egyptian.
No, not
If there was a civilization that came up from Greece, and they started to settle south of Italy.
Right.
So again, I'm looking at that.
Maybe you could do an image search on Google.
we have. Well, no, I'm not trying an image search, but I could try that. We've tried finding other similar. See if there's another ring out there like that at all.
Yeah.
And there's some modern ones that look just so cheesy.
Yeah.
But nothing historic.
The British Museum turned around and told me that it was, they didn't think it was Pan. And that my first, because I wrote to them and asked them if it could be Pan. I said, a friend of mine says it's a demon. Can it be Pan or is it a demon? They said, they don't think it's Pan. Maybe your friend's right. But we could tell you it's a few years, it's some of us years old.
Wow.
That's it, hundreds of years. That's what they said. But someone else has told me to go to the Nature Museum. Take it to the Naples Museum initially.
So that's the next mission then.
Well, and here's the thing. On this picture. Look how asymmetrical the face is cutting down the center.
Yeah.
On this side over here, it's a smaller beard.
Oh my!
The eye is further down.
Yeah.
If you covered up half the face, it looks almost. It's almost like those dual faces, like for theater.
Yeah.
For comedy and drama. You cover half of it, it looks one way, but then when you look at the other half, you get more of the full beard here. It sticks out farther. There's more of a grimace on the face. So each side of the face is showing off a different person. Like one good, one evil.
And he's good at me.
I think he's neither. I think he just is.
Oh,
It's just like,
I said he's full of mischief.
oh, no, I didn't say that. I agree he's full of mischief, but
Talk about different sort of life.
yeah,
If you open the safe door, well, there's some kind of thing. You open the safe door, it saves up on the wall. Open the safe door, and there you go. Ding, jump out.
Got a life of his own. Yeah. Guardian of the safe.
well, yeah, I mean, we feel like there's some kind of attachment to it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you said it was sound on iron nails.
Yeah.
And they particularly use iron in well, I remember being at there's something, when I first got to know Philip Kinsella, I was invited to go with him to this house. Yeah, people having a lot of bad luck. This lady, her husband had died, her son had died, and things like that. And Philip and this other lady and a group of their friends were doing a sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, but then trying to like exercise the place or something. But he was banging nails into the ground, iron nails that have been specially made for it. In his 20 experience to me. And they said there's something to do with the water nearby and
Ley lines.
ley lines type of thing. Yeah, yeah. And so that was iron nails, and they've been specifically made for this job. They didn't just go and buy them or something.
Oh, yeah, it's the iron nails, the ley line have come down, the iron nails, and it throws it off. It's then going that route, go that route.
And then I hear fairies don't like iron.
You love my house because we're in a house. I talked to Kerry Greenaway,
Oh, yeah.
about the trees in the garden. Got an old yew tree. You got hawthorn trees placed in corners. We've got holly and hawthorn hedges. This is all to do with witches and fairies.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I see.
to keep the evil out of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you don't.
No. Yeah. Was the amongst the minister,
Yeah, you think it.
deacon of the chapel up the road. Very forest.
But and
Lots
like,
And that's Osman, yeah, and used to be private, making horses. Right.
And so he was Blackswell.
And this somewhere,
By the way,
somewhere, there was a pair of horseshoes that he might won worth prize, buried somewhere, or we think the farmer at the bottom, because he used to come in, all his wife used to come and visit. He took, they were fried really much.
you know what, get on with him.
And the picture we've got at Herbert looking out the window.
Oh, minute. I took a photograph one day, right? And we're not long moved in. My son bought on leave our first digital camera. Mm-hmm. So I went out in the road, took a photograph of the house from the road. And then when I zoomed into the window, this is what Brian's talking about.
Wow. Herbert was looking out at the window and thought there used to be net curtains at the bedroom window.
yeah.
Eye window.
Yeah.
And the curtains are pulled slightly to the side. Herbert is looking out, staring down into the corner of the garden.
Ooh. And Herbert, that particular day I took a photograph, there was no one in the house except me. He was in London. He's in the house somewhere else.
I think your mum was there. She was in the lounge.
You know, she be for the heat and sit dog in the lounge. No,
Well, it's mum.
dog, it's a dog.
Yeah. It might have been your mum.
But it's interesting, all these ghosts always appear in doorways and windows.
Well,
I don't know. This is some,
why it's always, whenever I talk photograph, I always zoom into the window.
Yeah.
That goes back into our theory on the ring. We never finished, which is
oh yeah, this is a theory you've come up with.
the theory that struck me yesterday, seeing all these spaces. I don't believe we're seeing faces of spirits.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think we're seeing the faces of demons.
Yeah.
I don't think it's faces. She thought maybe it was showing faces of people it's interacted with over the years.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's in a way, it's kind of a portal.
Mm-hmm.
It's showing you in images of people living in other time frames.
Yeah.
Or in other dimensions. It's like giving you a snapshot photo of other people or other creatures, or humanoid-like creatures.
But she also fit me being a seer. Why for the reason?
Yeah.
As a seer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so it's fascinating, and again, with every picture, there's something different.
Yeah.
There's always something there.
Yeah.
Every picture. And you would think that if it was a trick of the light and if you're taking the picture, the same thing would appear at each time.
Yeah.
You know, if you're not moving, do the same angle, everything should be the same. And it's obviously,
Yeah. Yeah.
so, and that's been a big theme of mine lately with research I'm doing. I'm very interested in the whole interdimensional aspect. Because a lot of research being done right now, like the show Secret Skinwalker Ranch, where they are pretty much proving that there is some type of a portal wormhole on the property,
Right.
where things are able to go in and out of. And I think it's a good explanation for most types of paranormal activity. You know, I don't necessarily believe there's ghosts of spirits who haven't crossed over, just hanging out.
Yeah.
But if you're seeing like the woman that Irene saw, a time slip, it's part of all time is happening at once. And you even have not only just all time in this plane, but there could be other planes and realities that have existence.
Yeah.
That could bleed over into ours. So I think that's what it's showing.
Now, there's an interesting thing. I've seen it on Murray's programs. Might be aliens, ancient aliens or something. And it might have been South America, might have been Peru. There's this like mountainside where there's this section of the wall, if you want to call it a wall, the flatter side of the mountain, where the local natives, if you like, or whoever they were, ancient people, carve like almost like a doorway into.
Yeah, and the local that's in Peru.
Yeah, it is.
And Brian Forrester, who runs the Cusco Museum, and he's very big into all. Yes, we did.
Yeah.
Yes, Neolithic locations all around the world, and he's been there several times.
Yeah.
And this squared doorway, which is again not perfectly symmetrical, and even in the doorway, there's an impression
Right.
in the center. Now the local shamans will go in there and do rituals, whatever. But it's considered to be a portal to another world.
Yeah. And this is why my theory is that when people see spirits, a lot of the time, they appear to be standing in doorways.
So,
Because I think the doorway acts like a trance cabinet in a medium seance.
shadow people.
Yeah.
Oh, they were indoors.
Yeah.
People manning their hands. I was there.
Yeah.
They're always in doorways looking at you. They look back.
And then it brings us back to Stonehenge, because you've got doorways.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe there's something with Stonehenge and a reason. Because why do all these people, why do all these Neolithic people struggle with all their effort and time and stuff to put these bloody huge stones? Oh, sure they've got better things to do, but that's of extreme importance for some reason, isn't it? So, maybe
Well,
they'll.
soon enough, when the show starts and it goes round,
Yeah.
back into
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, stop.
Yeah, that's it. Rounded off very nicely, yeah. So this is why you got all these people like people looking beneath the layers that English heritage look at. You're looking at all this other stuff, and it's not just there to look pretty. That stuff is there for a reason.
Yeah.
They were all tools of some kind.
Yeah,
So they're aligned astronomically, and they think, oh, well, it's a calendar in stone. But it's a lot more than that. And it's what we talk about with the vibrations being in certain locations, and maybe they do work as types of portals, or like the pyramids in Egypt, the 3 big pyramids thought to be some types of power plants, producing energy. Brian Forrester was investigating. There's the one pyramid south of where the Giza Plateau pyramids are. There's this other step pyramid, like I forget how far south it is, but it looks like it's literally exploded.
right.
It's destroyed in such a way, like it looks like it had a mini mini explosion. That something might have happened. Maybe, and if these things worked, power plants, maybe it was an accident.
Yeah, their own Chernobyl.
Yeah.
Without the safety inspectors.
So we're going to have to wrap this up. But thank you, everybody, for listening to our little pub chat here.
Radio.
Yeah, Paranormal UK Radio Network. Not sure which program this is going to go out on, but
Well, I didn't know because
And Jules as well.
no, we're actually going to record our own.
Cool.
We're going to do our own show later this week in the house. So we'll be sitting side by side. Actually.
yeah.
That's brilliant. Brilliant.
Yeah, we'll be getting pissed while we're recording the show.
So it'll be a 3-hour show and you have to edit it down and edit out.
If we end up with 5 minutes. Oh, we're not laughing and messing around.
Okay, so that's the end of the show. Thank you for listening.